So, I'll try to. I guess that's the other thing I'm missing here, but we're live already anyway. I was going to get my laptop and read something, but I can do it here. Um, so who done stepped in the game? Um, Welcome. This is a ShadowCast 51, the one that got postponed from 2 weeks ago. But this is a special ShadowCast because it's going to be talking about something more recent rather than what was scheduled, what should have been a review of the Nintendo Direct and the Sony event. But in light of recent news, we'll go ahead and I mean, I don't know if you will call it news, but we'll go ahead and discuss. So I guess the biggest issue is we have individuals in the community, right? We have guys that I've done podcasts with. I've been on podcasts on discussed directly with those individuals and whatnot. I don't think they tend to address me, but sometimes I feel like slightly targeted a little bit. But then they could be talking about some of anybody, especially if they talk about Twitter, because that's some of anybody, right? But when you suggest the argument from authority, um, because a guy in your friend group developed a game, and creating an emulation layer does count as development. Um, and then you say, "Hey, you're not. This guy is an actual developer for Switch hardware, and not some random jackass on Twitter." Um, and then you think that individual has the experience to talk about something such as hardware emulation. Um, my problem is the very first thing that happened here was we discussed the discussion from the individual that we'll be speaking about. Basically, RGT made a video about MVG's video, right? MVG put out a video this week, and a bunch of news articles just started using it as the gospel. They start copying and pasting and say, "Hey, look, it looks like Nintendo's going to have some issues with backwards compatibility." So MVG, he put a lot of information out there, right? So he's talking about some of the abstraction layers, how Switch games are developed, where main code resides, and stuff like that, and how you interact with this software development kit for the most part, and how to get games running. The only issue with that is the majority of that talking point is talking about drivers being injected and whatnot, and what we would call software emulation. Um, yes, you could talk directly to device drivers and match one to one in that scenario, and that can happen. But when you're talking about hardware, it's a little bit different. And the reason why I'm gonna say some, while you have some experience developing software, I kind of put it in the comments. I kind of put it in the description of this video. At the end of the day, the vast majority of game programmers out there, they're still just users. So you as a gamer, you're a user because you launch said application in user space. You turn on your Nintendo Switch, you're in Horizon OS, and you're in the user sandbox. You play around with only the apps that are allowed to you, and then you press go. The same is also true when you take HAT 001, which is one of the original development kits for Nintendo Switch. You turn it on and you plug it into your computer, and you have your software development kit and your interface that only the part that Nintendo will allow you to see, and the interface on the actual device itself, which only Nintendo will allow you to see. You're also a user. So while you're writing your code, you are not writing to the bare metal, no matter what you try to do. You're still an abstraction layer above all of the things that the microkernel underneath Horizon OS is doing. So when you write to memory, it's actually a virtual page that is then addressed by the microkernel to touch everything that's on the Nintendo Switch. And kind of what I wanted to do, I had like some images and stuff to show, but doing all that kind of stuff is just kind of complicated in this environment right now, and I don't have everything pulled up. But anybody can you can just kind of Google what a microkernel is, what a actual kernel is. I can kind of show you some images here, but it's kind of, I'm dealing with my phone at this point. But essentially what we're talking about is, this is the difference here. I don't know how good you can see on this. Is it probably kind of weird here, but if you can see a little bit, what's shown here is you have on one side you have a microkernel, and on the other side you have the monolithic kernel, or just a regular kernel if you're dealing with Linux or something to that effect. So the issue is, we're talking about Nintendo Switch games being on other hardware as if the newer hardware is just gonna run Linux. And there's ways around that too, even if Linux was the full operating system that Nintendo decided to go with in the future. But I won't even go into that. But just know that even if it was regular Linux, there's ways to get the system calls that Switch has and get them to run in Linux runtime, as long as you have a x86 type of hardware. You can actually get it running. You can probably get it running in macOS if you wanted to, because it has the same type of kernel, microkernel situation. So, what's up, you guys? I see all y'all. RJH, Trinell, Gwen, TG, Jack Gates was the first one in. Dark Void, 8 Ball 1970. I see you. Wilton, Brand Smith, Dark Angels in here. Okay, Insert Time Squared. Monado Mario, what's going on? Say finish Xenoblade Chronicles 3 out 3 or 40 out. Okay, cool. So yeah, essentially this will be about how Nintendo Switch goes forward, or how Nintendo goes forward. What's up, J2 Blue? Legend of Josh, what's going on, y'all? Appreciate y'all coming in. But yeah, y'all can ask questions in the chat as well if you want to as we go through this. But basically, what you see in the thumbnail of this video is essentially what we'll be talking about here. Before I dive deep, yeah, Jay, what's going on with you, man? How you been?
I'm making it. Can't complain too much.
Can't complain too much.
Yep, just trying to get better.
What games you been gaming, if at all? Because I know it's been a short couple of days.
Just Octopath Traveler 2 and Metroid Prime Remastered and Tales of Symphonia.
Okay, understandable.
Yes.
Yeah, same. You see what's in here. I'm drinking Phase On from True Metroid Prime. It's just lovely all the time.
I'm just taking my time with Metroid. I done seen so many people like rushing through that game. But here's the thing: remember when people said they played Metroid Prime, the Metroid Prime series? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Why some of these same people saying that was their first time playing?
One of those things where either you're not old enough, or back in the day you didn't own the game.
You didn't own it
because you followed what everybody else said.
Boy.
Switch is popular now, so it's a lot of first timers.
Yeah, I'm glad they're getting to play it though, because I'm like, dude, this game deserves all the love it could get. Even though I hope they do 3. I hope they do Corruption, because Corruption is my jam.
Corruption is good. It's always good, man. Yeah, it's just weird how those gamers come out of the woodworks there.
I just think it's funny because we had this same problem with Dread.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I played Metroid games. Like, why are you complaining about it's hard? Because this ain't hard. This is actually easy. It's like the easiest one. It's actually one of the easier ones.
Like, people were complaining about how you shine spark and all that. I'm like, that was in other Metroid games.
Yeah.
They actually made it easier in Dread. So
they really did.
Yeah, you can kind of charge it and hold it, and
do all kind of crazy stuff.
I mean, you could deal with Super Metroid and the random, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, bounce off the wall mechanic.
Yeah.
Because I've spent so many hours just trying to climb up a wall that I'm kind of not supposed to climb up a wall, but you can, because they put it in the game for you to do it. So you're trying to bounce up a wall like back and forth, just and you're rewarded once you get up there because there's stuff for you to do. So But yeah, man, yeah, that game's great. Finally snagged a physical copy. That was a little bit tough.
I just, dude, I got to the point now where they talk about, oh yeah, we got a physical copy. I'm like, wait a minute, it ain't day and date. Oh hell no, I already know what this is. I already know what this is.
Yeah, it's just so weird, man. You know, I don't know what happened with that. I don't know why all of a sudden, and now physical games you gotta print those later or what have you, or you're not ready. I think Nintendo's just trying to gauge. They're like, well,
they're gauging. They're clearly gauging because like they ain't trying to spend nothing. They didn't have like stuff on the shelves.
They trying to maximize profit.
Yeah.
So I mean, truth be told, there's still Mario 3D All Stars copies out there.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
So for everybody that said, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're cutting it off," like they printed at least 2 million of them. At least.
I think it was more than that, but whatever. Dark Void, everybody hates the Chozo Ghost.
Oh yeah.
That and the Elite Pirate.
For whatever reason though, the Chozo Ghost, when I was like, so it's this certain combo you guys don't like too tough, and it kind of one shots you. So now I'm like, when I see them now, I don't feel too threatened. But when you run up on them and you don't expect them, and you got to switch weapons real quick, and I still didn't get used to switching weapons in this game fast enough. But when I played Metroid Prime on GameCube, I mean it's automatic because it's just the C stick. But in this game, you have to press a modifier button, which is at the top of the fucking controller.
That's why you switch to GameCube controller. Dude, that's why you switch to the GameCube controller.
I'm like, y'all killing me, bro. Y'all killing me.
That's why you switch to the GameCube controller.
But I wanted to try it because I play with the GameCube controller, and then I played with the Joy-Con split as well. Just to test. And
the only one I don't like is how they did the motion control. That's the only one I don't like.
I understand, is too loose.
Yeah, I understand why they did it that way, but I was just like, I could have found a better way to do it. But I don't think they had time, so that's why I ain't tripping too much about it. Plus, they gave you that many options. Just pick one.
It's just So I mean, it's just good that you have those options, so everybody will have a favorite way of playing.
That's why
I kind of got used to it by the end of the game. It's just that knowing going in, I'm like,
I already knew. I'm like, I'm finna walk into this room,
and I gotta do a lot of switching. This is gonna be dumb, and you eventually force yourself to memorize
that one in the Omega Pirate.
Yep.
That one,
Omega Pirate. Ooh.
Damn Omega Pirate, boy! If you ain't got enough missiles, go in there and think you hard.
Man, it's rough.
Go in there and think you hard.
It's rough. The only thing, I will say this, power bombs will save you in a pinch. So if you're ever in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm overwhelmed, I'm getting the controls mixed up, and I'm tired of switching visors, and power bomb, and then go back to where you were. So
you know what the hell with all y'all power bomb.
Yep. That at least get them off you, even if it doesn't kill everything. It'll at least get them off you for the time being.
And it will kill enough.
Yeah,
it'll kill enough. So
and potentially damage whatever you're fighting too. So But that's pretty much what I was playing and forcing myself through this whole Steam Deck situation. And I'm still trying to fix the time zone issue. I don't know what's going on with that, but that's just really strange how it's how it's going through that right now. I can't get the time zone to sync up properly, and it's the time zone that's the issue. It's not the time. So if I set it to a false time zone, it will give me the correct time, but that's not the right time zone for the correct time that I need. So I don't live at the bottom of the earth, so there's no reason for me to set that so I can get the correct time. But for whatever reason that's happening, I don't know what's going on with that. Otherwise, it's fine. And some of the updates are good now. So now, no matter what monitor I plug up to or what resolution I plug up to, it takes a second. It's not as fast as Switch, but it'll auto adjust, and then it won't give me like the giant text or the super small text, or actually flicker a whole bunch and not work at all, which is what was happening before. So it's actually getting to the point where if you dock it actually works. so that part's good. But yeah, that's these are the things I want people to know, because it's not perfect, because it wasn't built that way in mind. The whole goal was it was going to be a handheld that you could play games on, and they kind of had the dock thing, making it dockable and making it usable or whatever. I won't say it was an afterthought, but I think they developed that in mind specifically for the Steam Deck dock and for certain types of monitors and resolutions. So,
which could be the case. Which really could be the case. I mean,
but
that has happened before.
Third-party docks came out before the Steam Deck dock did, so it's kind of not. It's still their fault because they
they shouldn't have did it. They really shouldn't have did it. But
you're like, go, just put it out. It's fine. It's USB-C, so it'll work. Oh, you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, and there's different power requirements for USB-C, so but it's fine. Yeah, Cornell, I see you. You say it's good to see a ShadowCast from the beginning. Yeah. I mean, thanks, welcome. It kind of sucks, but I try to stick to these times. But even then, it was kind of hard configuring some stuff since I had been off of StreamYard for a while. So, but yeah, we'll go ahead and get to the nitty gritty. I want to. Maybe I can bring the window in. I don't want to play the video though. But what I wanted to show you guys was essentially I can just pull up a page so you can see what's kind of happening. What is this guy? Or actually I can use this. This is probably the best way to do it. Let's go to here. So this video here.
One thing real quick. Dark Void, do you think David Jaffe's going to play Metroid Fusion?
David Jaffe? David Jaffe. Right.
I had to ask, man. Y'all know I had
right. To ask. I doubt it. I doubt it. So I'll try to pull this in here so you can see this tab here. And if you just look here, you can see so you see this guy here, right? This is the whole issue that he's talking about here, that they have a backwards compatibility problem. So what I wanna go through here, he's right about a lot of it. But as soon as I saw you talk about how games are presented and where drivers are and how they're loaded when you run a game, I had a problem then, because that isn't just a choice that Nintendo tried to do. It's a result of a choice that they made regarding security, right? For those that don't know, I can go ahead and I can stop this. But for those that don't know, Nintendo Switch OS, or Horizon OS, as it's known internally by a lot of leakers and people from Switch Brew, whatever, that have uncovered all these little flags and whatnot. Once you finally get your own payload running on the Switch, that OS is not like a normal OS like Microsoft Windows or Linux, Red Hat, Fedora, whatever. It is actually more or less firmware. So it's a microkernel that has, how can I say this? It has what's called a user space area where you as a user get to interact with things, and there's certain things that you can touch and certain things you can't touch. And then there's a kernel area, which only the OS itself operates, or the firmware itself operates in, and it manages memory directly. It manages other processors directly. It manages CPUs directly. So even when you're programming as a developer, you don't directly touch those things. You send flags down to the firmware to ask for those resources. You're sending requests, essentially. You're not commanding anything. What's commanding those cores is Horizon OS, the firmware. So you can't see core 0, 1, 2, and 3. You can only see 3 of them. The firmware can see all 4. And if you dig even deeper, can see all 8. Um, I guess the issue therein is that saying that, hey, if a new Nintendo Switch came out, right, and there's the Orin SoC or Orin NX is one of the rumored SoCs, or Orin Nano is one of the rumored SoCs that Switch could possibly end up using at that point. Um, we're suggesting that since Maxwell was the original architecture, and you can't initialize the drivers for Maxwell um, on a new architecture. You couldn't say, hey, look, I need these shaders compiled. Hey, I need these drivers for old Switch stuff. Hey, bring all the other Switch firmware in, the drivers for that, so we can emulate those, or directly run the new drivers with the old software. The issue with that is going to be, since Horizon OS is already a microkernel, and it's just an extension of what the 3DS was for security as well. For those that don't know, it's not full blown Linux or anything like that. It's an extension of what the 3DS OS was, which is also based off FreeBSD, but kind of like FreeBSD. The FreeBSD that they use was kind of a microkernel, which is similar to what the mock kernel was, the original mock kernel that Apple borrowed for using macOS. So it's a little bit of a hybrid of both. Nintendo took it all the way down and said, hey, look, we're using just microkernel, and you get no access to drivers or anything like that. All that stuff, the firmware and the OS is just going to sit below and run local processes. The drivers are going to be part of the user space. So when you run a game, the drivers are compiled or are embedded in with the game for you to run, what have you. So there's nothing suggesting that that couldn't happen with newer hardware. The only difference would be, in those old games, when they have their drivers embedded and they reach down and touch in there, in the firmware in the Horizon OS below, or in the kernel space below, it would have the same registers. And Nintendo is really good at doing 1+1 type hardware backwards compatibility. They've done it multiple times with Wii and Wii U. Not just for drivers, but actually taking the actual hardware and making it look like something else. You had 1T SRAM pretend to be EDRAM for GameCube. You had an entire CPU core that pretend to be another CPU core from Wii U to Wii. You took 3 cores that were originally for GameCube, and they're not supposed to be multi-core, and they coded them to make them multi-core down to the Mercy instruction level to say, hey, look, hey, go talk and make all these CPUs cache coherent. Nintendo has a hardware team that's pretty freaking smart. They have a whole host of individual supervisors that are dedicated to programming directly to CPUs, like programming registers for CPUs. We're not talking something really small. We're not talking, hey, I wrote this game and it runs on just CPU. No, they're writing registers to change the behavior of how a CPU behaves, to make them reach cache faster, to programming certain interrupts for them. So they do things that they aren't necessarily designed to do. So you would look at a CPU and be like, oh, that's kind of old. But the way they went in and they changed everything, it is no longer the same CPU. That's the type of technology we have. And by and far, Switch is probably the most bare bones hardware Nintendo has ever ordered. And even then, they had NVIDIA go, hey, we need a custom API. We need a custom SDK, and we need support for both of these going forward. Also, yes, thank you for contracting with us for this SoC, but we need access to that backend. We need to be able, at any point in time, be able to lock the firmware down, and we need to be able to get access to boot and every subroutine after boot. So if anything happens, like, oh, I don't know, it got hacked, that ain't nothing but a firmware update for us. Good luck. So they've already foresaw all of that stuff. And I want people to understand, please believe that Switch's successor, the firmware and everything else, and planning for games and whatnot, all of that started the day Switch launched.
But Shadow, Jim Ryan said that. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. So I'm seeing these videos and I'm seeing people talking and stuff, and they're like, oh well, Nintendo's got a big struggle on their hands. They got to figure this out pretty soon before this system comes out. I'm like,
no, they don't.
When you were still saying it was the Switch Pro, and I was saying it was going to be a successor, they already had that plan. They already know what they're going to do. They already know.
Nintendo thinks like, what is it? 3 steps ahead. They already knew that.
They already knew.
They already knew what they were. They already had a plan of what they were going to do.
So that's why Gwen said probably months before Switch launched. That's probably accurate too.
As soon as that, what was it? Because Nvidia, they dropped something at CES. I can't remember what they dropped at CES. God dang it!
What are you talking about? The original X1? That was in 2015.
No, I'm talking about like they dropped something at CES this year. I gotta look it up.
Did they show the Jetson Nano this year? I know they announced it in September, but
they announced it in September.
Yeah, so they may have shown it in January, but so this is going to be. They have a 16 gigabyte variant. They have a Nano that's 16 and 8 gigabytes, and they have a Orin NX that's up to 64 gigabytes of memory there. So, I mean, there's all kind of different configurations they could use, but Nintendo likes custom shit. So they'll go and they're like, hey, even if they buy like one of those individual things, they'll change the memory and make it like 6 gigs, or they'll disable a couple of CPUs or overclock a couple of CPUs. That's just what they do. They're not going to give you anything vanilla because they want to tie down security. They want to make sure that it's stable, because what we don't want to do is have a SoC and then we try to play it handheld and we get like 49 minutes worth of game time. Not speaking from experience at all, but just saying. There are other platforms out there that might give you that. So, yeah, you don't want that kind of environment, and you definitely want to burn test everything. You want to make sure that demo that you saw in the middle of Super Mario Odyssey, where you're jumping in this little pool and there's hundreds of fish, that was the demo that Foxconn was running as a burn-in test as they were manufacturing these things. So,
I mean, because they would have did that at least like last year, they would have had that test already done.
Yep. Before they go, that's just something that they do. And these
supposed to do anyway.
Those leaks were from February 2016. That was the original leak that Semi-Accurate had, and they released the report in March. Then, of course, everybody came out of the woodworks and said, I said it first because please believe me, I'm the female with the handle on Twitter. Yeah, I
did not say this in all hate mail to
no, but for real, I'm gonna say this. Semi-Accurate has not been wrong on any of these releases, and they've been first to announce a lot of these since I want to say PS3. They haven't been wrong for the most part. They've always known ahead of time. They leak everything. So if it's a new Apple SoC, if it's a new Samsung SoC, they're on top of it. So the issue is, they're pay gated. So what happens is people subscribe to this. They find the information. They know it's pay gated. Then they pretend like they came up with it and they had the leak. So be aware of these people. Because I'm like, hey, what you're saying is pretty similar to what these guys said a month before you said anything. And then I don't get a response, or I get blocked, or, things like that. And I'm like, hey, do you see the date on this? Like, it's linked. It's a date on here. And they don't want that. But they're pretty much on top of it. And if they haven't heard anything yet, that means there is no leak. if they are fabricating anything right now, there is no point of contact. Um, so nothing is being manufactured, or Nintendo's doing a better job than we know. Because typically
Um,
speaking, they have fingers in all of the major fabs around the country, around the world, really. Because there's
I'm
only
pretty
like
sure.
5 major foundries
I'm
that
pretty
you can.
sure there's something being manufactured.
Yeah, they've got
I'm
something,
pretty sure.
and you know, it's nothing to just say, hey, yeah, it's just we got a shell company over here that bought these for, yeah, they're for a car. That's what we're buying them for. Sure, wink, wink.
Yeah. Yeah, wink, wink.
There's nothing stopping that from happening as well, just to kind of throw breadcrumbs on a false trail.
I mean, because with all the stuff they got going, like right now, they're doing the Super Nintendo World right now. They got that movie coming out. They their focus is probably the execs focus is probably on that. They probably ain't gonna say nothing about anything till the end of the year.
Yep.
As far as that's concerned, as far as but I'm pretty sure stuff is getting manufactured now because I still stand by this. I think whatever that next Mario game, 3D Mario game is, and Metro Prime 4 is cross gen.
Yep.
I think it's just going to be cross gen.
So I'll say this. So Jack Gates put this. He said they have to emulate the firmware and try to patch updates too. That won't actually be necessary either. And the reason why I'm gonna say that is both can exist at the same time. And the reason why I say that is the firmware is the OS in this situation. So the firmware, the lower level part that's the ones and zeros that's controlling um, interrupts for local hardware, that's just presented as whatever it's going to be. The OS can translate that as a microkernel, and whatever you're doing on top of it doesn't have to know. So it could be a situation where, hey, this is firmware update 10 and it's only version 1 for whatever the new switch is or whatever. But in a non-transparent fashion, it will present firmware version, I guess it's 16.0 now for Switch or whatever. So that game will say, oh, well, yeah, the firmware matches, the registry checks matches. So I'm going to go ahead and run now because all the flags are up. And what the trickiest part is what MVG was saying is that, hey, now we got to load these drivers from this game, right? What he was saying was he was thinking that more of like it'll be another monolithic OS, and there will be nowhere globally for the drivers to go because each individual game has those drivers because they're in user space. But what I'm saying is, just like 3DS and just like Horizon OS now, the next OS could also be a microkernel, and it can also have those drivers go in user space. So it would just be a new game for the new platforms that have, hey, all my new console drivers are going in this user space, but I also accept drivers from in user space from older games. That is nothing but a check underneath in the firmware itself. And since Nintendo are the only people that develop the firmware, and these are things that developers can't even really see, that's a handshake. Maybe he really didn't understand, I guess, at the time, because he's talking about, hey, how this usually works is, hey, we got this main code going up here, which is kind of irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. But basically, the main code for Nintendo Switch, they have modified ELFs that check for other flags and compatibility and stuff like that to say, hey, look, can we run this game? I forget what the handle, what the new name for it is, but it's an ELF. When you look at the flags and you look at how it's laid out on the headers for the files as the files are streamed forward, it's essentially the same. They just changed some of the checks so it looks a little bit different, but it's no different than ELFs that you would see on old PS2 or anything before that. So once those files are submitted in user space and they're brought over as a request, hey, for this game to run, I need these drivers. They need to exist. They match my code. They're here. Blah 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 blah. I'm sending them to you so you can do what you need to do and map to memory the way that you need to. The games don't touch RAM by themselves. They send requests and then a page flip happens where the OS says, hey, you're presented this, which is in the sandbox. Hey, game, run in the sandbox. You're not touching my real RAM, because what I'm not going to do is go corrupt, because your game, all I have to do is exit out of you and you're good. Because for all intents and purposes, I'm a hypervisor. I'm spinning these games up and they're sitting up in a balloon. And then if any one of them crashes, oh, well, that's fine. But my OS is still good. That's essentially what's going to happen going forward. And that's how it's going to be pretty much probably for every Nintendo platform going forward. They'll probably just do this for security, because that's the best way to do it. And that was the answer to Wii U and Wii then at the time, because people were like, hey, Twilight hack, and then we can go and do whatever. So now we've got this game, and we've basically brute forced our way into main memory because of a memory leak in this game. So now we've overwritten it or whatever. Now we got a buffer overrun, and now we can run whatever executables we want. Kind of hard to do that if you only exist in user space. If you're in a little sandbox, you're like, ooh, I can run little code. Yeah, as that game. You can't see any of the OS or the rest of the firmware. You're kind of stuck in user land over here. So that's kind of the situation we're going in. And I just want to let people know. Yeah, he was exploring that as a thought. I know he wasn't saying that as fact, but news articles sure showed up really quick as if he was speaking the facts. I want people to know that. And then worst case scenario, like Nintendo was like, oh well, this is kind of complicated for us to do this, and maybe we will have to download updates for each game, which they won't. They've already outthought this. If I came up with this just now, I'm pretty sure they already thought of it several years ago. Worst case scenario, they'll do exactly like they did with Wii U. 1+1. We now have Maxwell Integra inside the SoC, sitting side by side with the new SoC. Done. Too easy. So you have old cartridge slot, new cartridge slot. Go. Or, it accepts both cartridges or whatever it's going to be. I think that's the biggest mystery for Nintendo hardware going forward, is what kind of deal they have with I keep saying Moses. It's not Moses that does extra wrong. I can't think of the name of the other partner they have. It was Moses for a while because they used that for GameCube, Wii, and Wii U. I don't know who the new partner is. I can't think of their name right now off the top of my tongue. But whoever they're going to use, I'm for all intents and purposes, I think they're going to use the same partner. So I could probably just pull it up right now. But if they use those guys again, we're still going to have the same problem, because that stuff is really, 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 really expensive to come by. Macronix, sorry, that's who it is. So Macronix make this stuff. So these guys, they make all this stuff. So, and they make them several different pin sizes for you to be able to pull through and do whatever you need here. So the issue is, people typically say, hey, well, it's just NAND. So we'll just go, no, because it's readable and writable. They have both flavors there. And the reason why is, one is security. So they have a security ROM there that they use as a security token for the game card when you put it in. So it's registered. And that's a little bit more expensive than just a wad of NAND flash. So they have a good amount of different products. The issue is, once you start going over a certain size per pin, it's not cheap. So I'm looking here, and their NAND extra ROM, they're still in one gigabit densities, that's insane. That's insanely small. So you talking about 128 megs per pin. I don't know, man. I don't know how you do that when you're talking about games that are getting close to 100 or already at 100 gigabytes for some other platforms. But we're talking about potentially Nintendo 2K, Nintendo 4K. They'll just deal with whatever the actual frame buffer is for that, and they'll deal with file sizes way smaller than that, or do some other type of scaling that will offset that. So it's kind of really neither here nor there, but that is my biggest concern is how they're going to deal with file formats. Because we're talking about while Nintendo could probably make games, they could probably continue to make Switch and Switch successor games and still fit under the 32 gig envelope. Other third parties just simply won't because they're not gonna shrink their games. They're not going to cut any of the bloat. They're gonna have textures on there that were never intended to be seen on Nintendo's platform that way because it won't even support the resolution that is there. But they'll still have all that foolishness there as bloat. Um, so they're not even going to attempt to address it the correct way. And unfortunately, um, not saying Nintendo will have to cave to that, but they at least have to consider it because if they don't appease them, they won't be able to get the support. And I mean, say what you will about Switch. Yes, Nintendo came out of the gate firing with heavy hitters and whatnot, but I think the system definitely got more popular once they started to realize, hey, you know what? Some of these other games are showing up here. Um, I mean, just seeing Elder Scrolls there was probably a big deal that got a lot of people to change their minds about how that system was supposed to be supported. So, um, but yeah, man, that's kind of the gist of it. I don't want to delve too deep into it. I'm gonna make a video on this eventually. I have to get some other stuff together, but I'll go ahead. I want to dig. I want to dig as deep as possible to show you guys exactly what I mean here. But essentially speaking, what Nintendo's doing now is what they're going to continue to do. They're going to make another. They're going to make another microkernel. It'll be Switch Horizon OS or Switch Vista OS or whatever they want to call it. And it'll be something that'll be extremely low level again. It'll be snappy. You'll probably complain because there won't be themes and all that other kind of foolishness. But the whole goal is they want to make it as light as possible. So you're talking about 200 megs for all the resources on the OS. Come on, man. Like nothing else gets smaller than that.
Yeah, people
We're
complain
talking
about prices now. So
yeah. You talking about your resource size for Switch is competing with GameCube. Like and GameCube was like, I boot, look at Cube.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like that was pretty simple. So if you're talking about making a whole OS that you can move all kind of stuff around with assets smaller than that, like you're kind of doing it. So for smaller, I mean for larger resolution too at that. So
because have you ever thought like a lot of people be asking for all this stuff, right?
mm-hmm.
But then you think about it, and they get mad when they see prices of stuff. I'm like, what you think you paying for?
Yes.
If you want all this stuff, you're gonna have to pay the piper.
Yes. And I
So
want to remind people again.
stuff ain't cheap.
Look, Nintendo gave you a discount at $300, and there's a reason why it's still $300 now. Because in 2015, when they decided to sign this deal, that was cutting edge. Like nothing else that small was doing what Switch was doing. They
Nope.
got it on the bleeding edge. So I don't know what else to tell people because I mean, if Nvidia just said, "Hey, we've got an SoC that destroys Xbox One and PS4 core per core." So you take one CPU core here and one CPU core here, you put them at the same megahertz and they get destroyed. Also, our SIMD instructions are way faster, way better, way cleaner. And nobody kind of really talks about that. Maybe I should do a video about that too. How they, those CPUs were so weak. They were so bad.
Well, they talk about them as long as Apple is doing it on the phone. I mean, they do.
But it's just.
Well, and Dark Angel, you are absolutely right because people will sit up and say they want all this stuff, and then when they see that price point be $499, they're gonna be sitting up here mad. I ain't paying $499 for Mario.
And it'll be the Wii U all over again. Why don't I just wait until the new Microsoft or Sony system comes out then if I'm gonna pay that much? Yep. Because Wii U was $350 when it first came out. That was Nintendo's most expensive system.
And I remember people telling me that $99 was a good price point.
For Switch?
No, for Wii U. For Wii U, they were saying $99 was a good price point.
The gamepad was that much initially. So
I just blocked that dude. But yeah, I didn't even respond to the block. I'm like, I don't have time for this. So yeah, people complain all the time. That's why I'm like, yeah, you ask for all this stuff. You say you want all this stuff. They need to get with the time. I'm like, they're never gonna play the power game again. They did it with GameCube, and the excuse was made that it was what the mini discs and the storage was the excuse then.
Yeah, instead of them just, like
Even
admitting.
though it was the second most powerful system on the market.
And PS2 had several multi-disc games.
Mm-hmm.
Several. So I don't know what the problem is there. And
yep.
I mean, Resident Evil 4 showed people how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
I mean, the Capcom 5 showed people how to do it. That whole suite. Even PN03, which I did not like that game as compared to the other ones, but it was off the chain.
I love that game because it was because the combo system was what ended up being in Resident Evil 4 Mercenaries, like that same timing, and so that kind of, I mean, different gameplay loop, but the same engine for you getting your combos and getting your score up.
Oh yeah,
kind of addicting. So, but no, that's no real shade on MVG or anything like that. It was just, I think he was just trying to, not saying he was just trying to rush something out, but he was speaking his mind then at the time and clicked upload, and then RGT came out like, well, I got to defend him because somebody's saying something stupid on Twitter. I don't know what all was said. I just saw one tweet by Juice Man Vaughn, and he wasn't really attacking MVG, and everybody else, I don't know. Because there is no normal Twitter anymore. Because if you pick for me, you see all kind of foolishness. So I just pick follow. So it's only going to be pretty much people that I follow or people that are my mutuals in my circle for me to see. I don't see any random stuff anymore. So it's kind of hard to suggest there.
Be more. I believe you are absolutely correct. The current ones can barely hit them and maintain them.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like I don't understand what the rush is. If to this day we don't really have games that are doing the maximum that even Nintendo Switch could do, because there's no game that's just like, hey, we're 1080p 60 frames per second all the time, other than Smash Brothers.
I mean, or do it consistently. Let me put it like that. Yeah. Do it consistently.
Yeah. I mean, so nobody's really making an effort. So the closest we got was Nier Automata, and that's like 30 frames per second with dips, but it's 1080p.
The funny thing about it was, if you got a performance mode, shouldn't you not have those problems?
Yeah.
I was just checking.
Yeah.
I was just checking.
Yeah. So you have to pick between whether you want 60 frames per second in either 4K or 1080p, or you have to pick between playing checkerboard rendering at 120 hertz, or you use RT. So you got ray tracing, but now it's 30 frames per second. I thought it said 8K on the box. So what I want is what was marketed to me. And I believe that this system shouldn't have had that number on the box if it can't really do it. That's kind of where I'm at. But and I would expect that I'm going to play more than one game. So I would like for whatever that promised resolution is to be in more than one game, which is, and some consistency, please, because I don't play every other frame. I play all the frames. So can we have that in every frame? Just saying.
I mean, that's what happens when you get your PR team doing something that. Well, I said this Sunday, like they need to stop parading out PR people to tell people specs and knowing they can't keep them. I mean, I remember that first Stadia Connect. Why in the hell are they talking about 8K? Why were they talking about 8K? Why?
And then the one nerd they put out there they won't listen to. Yeah. Mark Cerny is the guy y'all should be listening to. And nobody wants to hear him. Well, even the other developers don't want to hear him.
Well, the funny thing about that was me and you said this, like they shouldn't have did this presentation to everybody. This presentation was for developers because half the people didn't understand what was being said. They didn't show a game per se. And I'm like, he was telling you, he was trying to warn y'all to temper your expectations, but we know how that went.
Now, just imagine if they listened to him though. If they just went and said, "Hey, look, you can get the same performance we got in this Spider-Man game if you divide your game up into chunks this way, and then stream it to the SSD this way, and make sure that the main memory you have isn't completely fucking full. That way, you can always stream data with no loss." Like, just imagine if every third-party developer listened to him and said, "Hey, let's see what he's got here, and you know what? We could take this and also do it on the Xbox Series X and Series S." They all have SSDs built in.
The Series S is holding back gaming. You gotta remember.
Yeah, clearly, despite not rendering anywhere near the same amount of pixels as the Series X.
But it's holding it back. It's holding it back. That's the narrative. We got to run with it.
Yeah, man, whatever, man. Leave it to me to defend an Xbox, right? But like, I don't.
Oh, my bad. We hate Xbox. Sorry.
We're supposed to hate them,
right? We hate Xbox. My bad. Sorry.
I thought. Oh wait, I don't get Sony water if I defend Xbox. I got to defend. Oh, okay, got it.
Yep.
All right. I gotta buy that very, very expensive PlayStation Edge controller. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know if I want that at all, to be honest with you.
You don't want 4 hours of battery life?
Man, nah, I'm good with the one I got. I got to continue charging, so I'm good with that.
How you go down in battery life? That's all I want to know.
Every generation, we'll go.
Like PS3 had what was a damn near 80-hour battery life.
We'll go from 80.
Went to like 6. PS5 went to one of my homeboys told me his didn't last 3.5 hours. Yeah. He was mad as hell.
And I'm like, there is no reason for your controller to have a lower battery life than the OG battery on the Wii U gamepad. I can play a whole ass game remotely with a screen with better battery life than your just controller, as you said. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And I would have never believed that until I saw this controller.
Well, the funny thing about it was like I remember seeing a YouTube video a long time ago where dude showed that the battery out of the DualShock 3 and DualShock 4, it was the same size. So he just took the battery out of 3 and put it in the 4.
I know you're tired of me doing it on your podcast, so I'll just do it on mine. Y'all buy this, man. Just buy this. Keep it moving. Just it will give you sanity. If you have a PS5, if you have a Series X, if you have a Switch, just get this.
I got one, man. Yeah, just the 8-bit though. The 8-bit though is for real. That's a good controller. That one. And if you have to be fair, if you have a PlayStation 4 or 5, that Nikon controller, that's a good one. Now it's a little bit more pricey, but it is good because that's what I
what's the battery life when I was 8 hours on that one, or is it
on the Nikon?
Mm-hmm.
Mine is 20 to 25.
There we go.
Yeah. 20 to 25. So on the Nikon. Now on the 8-bit though, I didn't get up to like 30. Before I even had to do a charge. So
yeah, I only charge it because I have the dock. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to. I just sit it there because I like the light coming on.
Yeah. I just like I just throw it on there. But yeah, I make jokes, but yeah, y'all know I'm not serious.
yeah. It's just strange, man. I don't want people to be freaking out. Nintendo knows what they're doing. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
If Nintendo wanted to be ahead of the hardware race, if you will, and have the most powerful hardware,
they got the money to do it at least for 2 generations. They got the money at least for 2 generations to do it, but they're not going to do it because they already did it once, and everybody came up with excuses.
And it's not their focus. Like,
yeah, that's just not their focus. So
if Reggie came out and made a video with the most popular gaming YouTuber then at the time, and obviously he got into a little bit of hot water after that from some other things, but if he's able to come out then and say, "Do you even ray trace?" Like he already knows, and he's just the president of Nintendo at the time. He's not a technical guy, but even he knows he's had discussions of where things need to go, and we're talking about Wii U days. then at that time, so he already knew where things were supposed to go before Sony and Microsoft decided to say after those other platforms to say, hey, look, we're going to we're going to attempt to simulate ray tracing.
I mean, dude, like if you're playing Octopath Traveler 1 or 2, and you see them water effects in there, you're like, y'all
Yeah,
can't do this on the supposed realistic stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's just odd, man. I just want people to understand that they know what they're doing. So
Yeah.
if you got, just think about all the work they had to do to make Wii U a thing. They made they created their own custom 5 gigahertz channel. Obviously, they had a partner with that, but they came up with their own routine of making that work. The amount of engineering to make something like that possible and it not be broke as hell day one, I don't know what else to tell you.
And
Yes,
make it
the OS,
seamless.
yes, the OS was slow once you first got it and all the other kind of stuff. But then you play the game, and then in the game, all those problems disappear, and it just works. So I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking because we're talking 2012 when everything was super slow, and but when you play the game, it was there.
Yeah.
So if they
I
had
mean,
that then,
it was the narrative that was being pushed, man. You know that.
yeah,
It was the narrative that being pushed. They need to go third party. I don't know why they're doing this. This doesn't run right. This game can't run. Anonymous senior engineer from EA says the game can't run. All that stuff. You had people that didn't have kits saying that the system was trash, and then when they actually got one because they got fired from their job because they company went out of business. Now all of a sudden they're indie developing like, hey, this game actually runs, but the only place you ever saw it at was his blog and not the several places he went to when he was bashing.
yep. I, at this point, I think the only reason Wii U didn't support GameCube games as far as backwards compatibility went because you could modify the software and get it to work
Yeah, yeah,
was because there were no controller ports built into it.
yeah.
I believe that's the only reason why they didn't opt to do that because they could have. They were just like, no, we'll just go all wireless and keep it moving.
I mean, they
USB,
had like the ultimate backward compatibility machine.
yeah.
And but my bad, we want new games. We don't want to play old games. Game Pass comes.
That was a thing then. That was a thing where PS4 was like, well, ponies then at the time were like, well, we don't buy new consoles to play old games, and I'm like,
Yep.
all right, cool. But The Last of Us came out as a re-release for PS4, and you sure enough bought it. And
Not a year after the game released.
yeah, and now the third iteration is out, and they'll probably buy that again too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the irony,
The
nothing but
irony.
irony.
I'm saying like people kept saying that we buy consoles to play new games. Game Pass comes out. Oh man, we're gonna be able to play all the games. Like, wait a minute. Didn't you go on like an hour and a half diatribe about not wanting to play old
Yep,
games on the new system?
yep. So, I guess we can scroll through a couple of questions. I don't know which one. I know you answered a couple, but I'll
Yeah, I
go through
did.
real quick and on you guys. Appreciate y'all coming through, man. We got a that comment's hilarious. This is a game you, yeah. I think they kind of had to because it's slow right now. So they needed to use his video like, hey, well, this developer is saying this is a problem. So, oh God, what is Nintendo gonna do? And they got the
Mm-hmm.
clicks.
Yep.
So, and you saw what I did. I just showed you the Google result. I ain't clicking on nothing. So I'm not paying any people. So what did Dark Angel put? So some games were retired digitally, and he said that's why this emulator exists. All I did was reply no, and that's why he blocked me. MVG did that? Jesus. Okay. I
Well, a
wouldn't
lot of
expect
people,
MVG to do that.
a lot of people do the emulator excuse, and what they don't tell you is you got to get the emulator to work.
Yeah.
That's what they don't tell you because a lot of people swear up and down it's easy to make which one supposedly runs Xenoblade Chronicles X, but it only runs like the first two chapters.
Simu.
Yeah, it only runs the first two chapters.
So you can get that to be updated. You can get it to work. But the issue is there's different techniques and in a lot of the areas. So, and it's hard to test for all of that at one time because the
Yeah.
game map is so freaking
Well,
big.
that's the problem because like a lot of people that because I know a couple people that actually use it. Like, dude, it doesn't work past after the second chapter starts getting choppy, and after the fourth, you might as well just hang it up.
Yeah.
So, are you playing the whole game or not?
which kills me because like you got to explore that whole world, which means you got to go through all the chapters and then get the flight module, and then guess what? The scenery changes again towards the end of the game. So what do you do then? And you haven't even tested that because you got to go to the end of the game to test it.
Yep.
So it's not like some of these other games where all the assets are going to be reused. There are entire environments in X that are segregated that you're not going to see unless you delve deep into a cave or you're at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. So because you can't. There's a couple of places you can't swim there, you can't fly there yet until certain things happen. So, oh yeah, Monado Mario save finish. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, 340 hours. Got so many things to say about the game, but overall it's to go. Yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is out there.
I gotta do that other thing, that Beatrice. I gotta get her thing, and then I'll go on and just beat Z so I can get it over with.
I'm still partial to the combination of X and 2, and only because 2 is so broken because Elma's in the game. So I'm kind of partial to both of those, but 3, depending on how this last DLC goes.
The hell with 2. And y'all know why it's the hell with 2 with me. Y'all know why I can't stand Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
But it's okay. It depends.
I don't have Cosmos.
It depends, man. You know, Cosmos is in Xenosaga, so it's fine.
It's not fair. I ain't playing that game no more, man. I did 3 runs of that game and that still ain't get Cosmos. The hell with them.
Dark World, we kind of answered your question, but yeah, that's the conspiracy theory. It's not really a conspiracy theory. Well, I blame the outlets for doing that because they kind of came up with the headlines. They kind of make it seem like, oh, well, it's just not happening kind of situation. Like,
and that's truly not the case.
If you guys want to go watch MVG's whole video, because even some of the stuff that he suggested, he went back and said, well, it's possible that Nintendo might get by it because of this one thing. The only problem that I had was when he started talking about the drivers and them being a user space. I'm like, there's nothing suggesting that Nintendo's new hardware won't do the exact same thing, which means it could also accept those old user space drivers to be received the exact same way. There may or may not be a monolithic kernel for the next OS for the next platform, but that's neither here nor there. That's information that we don't know right now. But more than likely, that's what Nintendo is going to do because it's what they did previously with Switch and with 3DS. So we'll just have to see. Let's see. Your Dark Angel talking about the Hong Kong time zone. Jesus. I appreciate all y'all watching. We definitely appreciate y'all. So I try. What I want to do is to be able to make these a little bit more informative, but it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to go back and forth because I don't want to I've seen how people do these live shows before, and unless you have a whole bunch of stuff already staged and ready, and I'm sorry guys, I'm busy, so I don't really have. I dedicate just about as much time as I have to this podcast as me starting it. So me spending all day prepping assets for thumbnails and all this other kind of foolishness, preparing clips and having all the art assets to throw up here, having the little banner at the bottom and all that, preparing intro. Nobody has time for all that. I just want to.
You got a full-time job, dude.
Get out and speak. I don't have time for this.
You have a full-time job.
I'll say this. Developers are users. When their stuff doesn't work, they call people. Mm-hmm. That much I'll say. So this is the other part of it too. So they said backwards compatible issue is an issue because they're changing chips for the new system and the Tegra 1 chip being discontinued. However, what MVG described is not the problem in terms of the issue with the game code. Correct. And And I don't like so RGT said this in his video too, like, oh, the Tegra is discontinued, blah blah blah. Not necessarily, because
not
as me and you talk about this often, right? When you have a partner, right? Something being discontinued is only being discontinued for individual people to purchase at large.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing to say if Nintendo wanted to continue making Switches, they could just buy more Tegras.
Yeah, they're not going to
After
stop
this
making
quote
them.
unquote discontinued date. Like Nvidia will still they'll pump out more. It'll happen. So I guess the thing is, so these are still going to be in cars. They're still going to be sold in cars as late as 2025 at this point. So you still see the Tegra, no matter what you do, because there still be large design wins that they're selling. So
and they got to get rid of all the stock.
Yes, they got to get rid of it.
They have a lot of stock. They're not gonna. And one other thing too, it's kind of like when G Plus went down. Yeah, G Plus went down for everybody, but internally, Google still uses G Plus.
They're still using it for businesses. It's a couple of new apps they wrote for it too, which is actually insane.
It's still being used. So yeah, just because it's discontinued, don't mean it's discontinued.
Yeah, it's just for Tay user can no longer operate, but Tay business can. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. So virtualized session, yeah, that's essentially what we're saying. It is, but it isn't. So what happens when you run a game is you have the game will say, hey, I need so much RAM, and the kernel layer will say, all right, we'll present you this RAM. Whatever you do with that RAM in that game or whatever is randomized. There's a term for it. I think it's LASD. Not to be confused with LSD, but essentially what's happening is that layer of memory is being randomly addressed and moved about. So there's something happening there at that point. So if I'm not mistaken, I think it's LR. Don't get me the line here, but I forget what the actual name of it is. ASLR is what it's called, address space layout randomization. But I mean, it's just a roundabout name to say what we already know. It's being chopped up into chunks and moved around in different bits, so there's no way to predict or no way to intercept the memory as it's being passed down or up. So that's essential. That's a security thing, and that's how the sandbox works. Let's see what else we got here. It says was compatibility 100%? No. Well, are you saying is it going to be 100% going forward? Is it a guarantee? No, it is likely. But are you asking if 100% of every game? No, it isn't 100% even for GameCube to Wii and Wii to Wii U. So it's going to be some things where even if you emulate in hardware, there'll be some weird programming somewhere where they're looking for some register that isn't there anymore. Because memory allocation was changed from GameCube to Wii, and it was changed from Wii to Wii U. So when you try to run a Wii game in Wii mode on Wii U, some things will break or some things will be slow, depending. So depending on what game you're playing, you may get a little bit different performance, depending on what's happening there. So I don't really see any more. I'm looking for another one here. Trey said the Mario Kart track's about to drop. Okay. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it is right because they dropped they dropped the what is it, the demo for the Bayonetta game, Lost Origins. They just dropped the demo for that. That's downloading for me even as we speak. So I'm gonna try that one out. If I don't try it out tomorrow, it'll probably be Friday.
Yep.
Get that
I don't know about leaks at this point. Nintendo's really tight-lipped. So I think what's going to happen is they might actually beat the leakers. They might just say in the summer at some point, they just say, hey, look, this is what we're working on. They might not show a picture. They might not say anything. Hey, we got this.
I think it's going to be just like what happened with the original Switch. It's going to probably be in November or something. We get that one little trailer, that one little 3-minute trailer.
But they did make a statement, though. They said, hey, NX is coming.
Yeah.
So they kind of let it be known that, hey, we're letting the cat out of the bag pretty soon. So don't listen to nobody, kind of situation.
Yeah. So I mean, I can see them doing that because once again, I don't see this thing coming out this year. I see, if anything, I see it coming out in a dead month like March, like they did last time, because you maximize your money like that, and it's right before the end of the business fiscal year.
Yep. J2 said he think you're gonna be the new Andre now,
Who?
because they released a demo for Bayonetta Origins.
Man, all I said was that wasn't the demo when the one they put in the game. That was just, I don't know what that was. Yep. I don't know what that was. That was just, hey, look, we're working on this.
Yep. And I think we kind of knew this was happening. They're gonna ride the wave. So I think, was it Metroid Prime, Metroid 2, Return of Samus, and Metroid Fusion are out. So yeah, so you can go look at the whole Metroid story and go from there. So that'll be good. Since
David Jack is gonna love it.
Super Metroid is on there now, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's on there.
It's on there, so you can go.
That was like one of the first ones that dropped when they dropped the SNES. That was one of the first ones that dropped.
So you can play them in order now. Like you can go Metroid 1, 2, 3, which is Super Metroid, 4, which is Fusion, and then you can go straight into Metroid Dread. So that's pretty cool. I mean, stop by Metroid Primes to find out what happened in between 2 and 3.
Yeah. I'm saying, I can't wait for David Jaffe to play him.
Yep. Yeah, he's definitely gonna give Nintendo more content to use. Yeah. I don't. So like I said, I'm not dropping shade on the dude. It's just, and I would expect that too, because as a developer, what you're used to seeing is what's in front of you, and that's just the SDK, and you have certain tool sets at your disposal, and you're just going to move assets around based on what's presented to you. I'm sure he knows there's stuff that happens well beneath that versus what he sees, but I mean he should know anyway, because I'm pretty sure he follows a lot of the homebrew stuff for Switch, so he should know. Like one guy, he emulated all of the system calls of Nintendo Switch and ported it to like 2 or 3 different OSs, so they start at runtime. The only thing that keeps a lot of those games from running is there's no GPU emulation, so everything will have to run on a CPU. So you have to have a really good CPU, and even then it'll probably still be slow performance. But if you had the GPU emulation working right and the right API for it, then it would be good. So it's not anything that's complicated. So I got Panasonic. No, we showed who it was. It was I forgot that quick because I always confuse them. I always confuse them with Mosys, but it's Jesus. I can't remember their name, but they developed Extra ROM. So, and they also made the cartridges for the 3DS as well. So whoever they are, I showed them earlier. I put the thing up. So but yeah. Now this is a thing. He said our next generation game card is going to actually have RAM in the media. So I was going to make a video about this, and I really think that RAM disk should be a thing, and that's essentially what Mark Cerny was trying to address to people talking about the Spider-Man demo. The majority of the fast traveling and moving was happening more so in RAM and not just the drive. So the drive was just smartly moving files around really fast, but the majority of what you saw was stuff getting in and out of memory really quick. So there's a really long paging that was happening on the SSD, and they're streaming back to memory as fast as possible. And the task is so long that by the time one thing leaves RAM and the next thing needs to be loaded into RAM, there's no wait. So it's just one of those things where having a really long process is to your benefit. You and chopping your game worlds up works really well too, because in addition to streaming data in and out of RAM, you can do page flips as well. So imagine having 16 gigs of RAM, and for every megabyte of RAM, you create 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of virtualized memory where you can always go back to like really quickly. So if there's assets that you see a lot, you can always flip back to those. Like, hey, I'm in this location here, and it's about 100 megs of RAM, and I'm about to go to this location over here, and it's 200 megs of RAM. Out of a 1 gig space, you can flip back and forth between those, and it's instantaneous. If you combine those techniques together with some of the new speeds that you have in main memory, I mean, the potential is limitless. You just have to stop bloating your game. Like you can't have over 400 gig worth of art assets in these games. You just got to make it smaller, man. It's fine if you see a repeat of a stop sign every now and then. That's what a city looks like.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You don't need a new asset for that.
And you have skinning now, so you can make it look different. So you can have like a stop sign with a bend in it to make it look different if you want to, because that's what skinning does. So you don't have to change what the texture is; just change the shape. I don't understand. I don't understand why we need. You're gonna take a picture of a shot up stop sign. You're gonna take a picture of a bent stop sign. You're gonna do these high resolution scans of all these different phase changes of something that nobody's really paying attention to like that. When you could just change it with skinning, I don't. It's just so weird to me. It's just really really weird. Some of the choices that people make. Like, what was it? One they were talking about. What was it? The pot or something in Final Fantasy 14. That was like had more more resources used in like in the full character in the game. Like, what are we doing?
Like, what? Yeah. What was the point of doing it? It's except just to brag, and then you don't even notice that pot when you're playing.
Yeah.
So
Not completely pointless. Dark Voice said, "Do you think the T239 chip exists, and will that be the SoC for the next gen Switch?" The chip exists. Whether Nintendo is using it or not is up in the air. I haven't seen anything that references this. Anytime I see anybody on Twitter try to point to it and say, "Hey, it's using this," blah blah blah, and I'm like, "Tell me where this is." They will just say, "Hey, in this leak, we have a list of devices," and they point to the architecture.
Yeah, that doesn't say nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Tell me where that chip is called out, and it's not there. Yeah. So,
once again, I just don't see it. I don't see anybody doing that, especially. I can't see Nintendo letting that leak if that's the case. I can see Nvidia letting it leak, especially if it's like something that they want to sell later.
I will say this though. I will say this. I will suggest that T239 would have been a great suggestion for a Switch successor because it's different enough. At the time when it was originally talked about, they were saying this was going to be in the Switch Pro, and I'm like, first of all, there is no Switch Pro. Second of all, how would that even work? Because that's a completely different architecture. It is nowhere near it is nowhere near what's in the current Switch right now. So it's not the same architecture. It doesn't match up. So they would have to have either develop new firmware or have a whole bunch of different flags referencing this and how Horizon OS is going to interact with it. And yeah, that would be strange. Yeah, so that it would definitely be a candidate if Nintendo's going to do a next gen Switch, but I'm pretty sure they're going to do something kind of beyond that.
I just got a feeling they're going to do something real different.
Yeah.
They're going to do something real different.
Yeah, definitely.
I just got a feeling.
So, y'all can keep showing me your questions, and we'll go from there. I got like a oh God no. Oh God no. I'm not even going to address that one, but we already know. First of all, what will we talk about? Second of all, how long do you think that will last? Like,
I'd say 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be more like, elaborate. Tell me how you thought of that. and that'll probably end pretty quick.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna go down too hot. So
yeah. So G2 says, do you think the games will work on the new Switch? Will their games have enhancements? That will be up to individual developers at that point, because you gotta. The only enhancement I could think of really at that point would be a higher internal resolution, which is basically what Wii U did for Wii games, and kind of in a roundabout way is what we did for GameCube games. So essentially, yeah, you could, but it would be more at the hardware level, just saying, hey, look, just render whatever in this space, because this is what we have for you. If this system is designed for 4K or whatever, make sure you draw within the 1080p box and do whatever you need to do from there. Or 1440p, which, I mean, Switch really could do higher resolutions. It's designed to, and the USB-C on there definitely supports the bandwidth. So internally, also on the dock and on the system itself, supports that bandwidth. It's just, why? If your game is, I don't want to play a game in 4K if all the assets for textures and stuff are still 512 by 512. It's not going to look good.
Yeah.
So
there's no point at that point.
Yeah.
There's just no point.
All right, so let's see what we got else here. If you had to guess the next Tegra and which one makes the most sense, I put it in a Twitter thread. One of my followers, I think, actually suggested it, and I looked and I saw it's the 8GB variant of the Orin Nano. That's the closest to something Nintendo would do, because it has 6 cores, and that's twice the 3 that are available to Nintendo Switch developers right now. So that would actually be perfect. That would fit within the mail. That way, current developers for Switch could get their game up and running on whatever the new Nintendo system is in a matter of days.
Mm-hmm.
So they could just move their project over pretty simply. That was probably what I would think. So if you look at just Google in NVIDIA. I don't want to waste time here, but NVIDIA Jetson Nano, and there's different configurations there. They have an Orin NX model, which is up to 64 gigs. They have an Orin Nano model, which is 8 gigs, and an Orin Nano model, which is 16 gigs. So some people are dreaming big and saying 16 gigs. I don't think Nintendo would do that. Just being completely honest with you.
Because it'll cost too much.
Yeah. Like, why spend that extra money when they could do the same thing with 8?
Nintendo's actually trying to make a profit. They're not allergic to money.
Yep. Yep. So I got to mention here, it's always possible Nintendo have a huge stock of Tegra chips and they can use them for the first batch and make a new model. Yes, they can. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do another form factor after the successor launches too. Yeah. They'll just be like, hey, here's the Nintendo Switch Lite. And, and they'll sell that for $70 or something, and they'll fly off the shelf just like the 2DS did.
I mean, they did that for the Wii. Remember that? Like, they made one like, it was 2 years after that thing was...
Hey, man, got to clear out those bin parts.
Yeah.
People like to talk, I'll just wait for Nintendo. Yes, this is the way right here.
Yeah.
This is the way right here.
That's how you're supposed to do it.
Because nobody knows. Nobody knows but them, but... Let's put it this way. They've been working on this for a long time. Whatever it is, they've been working on it since 2017 at least.
Well, so, most companies, when they are, especially like Nintendo and certain other companies, they start R&D a year after they release their current console. They start R&D on it. Yep. And usually it starts getting manufactured, starts getting worked on. They figure out what SKU they're going to use, usually by year 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think
depending on what it is.
I think it was last year. It was last year or the year before. On one of their IR statements, they put an increased cost for research and development on there. That, and of course, then because that was that was a hit to operational costs. I think that was operational loss for them, even though they still had an overall net profit. And of course, the news articles went, "Oh, Nintendo had an operational loss. Oh God!" I'm like, bro, like read the rest of the statement. They're to the plus though, to the good. So, yeah, people don't know how to read financial statements, but
well, they ain't got no business reading them because number one, like you're not gonna see everything. Well, I've said this multiple times. You're not gonna see everything that an investor sees. You're
correct.
not going to see it. They're not going to show you everything. You're not going to get a breakdown. They get an itemized breakdown
Yeah,
of everything.
yeah,
With
they did
PG
explain
charts,
that the loss was for R&D, so
yeah,
that
and
has to be when they're starting on whatever
yeah,
this is.
and losses for R&D happen. That's because remember when Microsoft had their $2 billion
Yep.
loss? $1 billion of that was because of R&D for the Surface Pro 4. That was
Also,
$1 billion of that went to.
also, it's smart business. If
Yeah,
you keep all your money inside of the business and you keep it all in stock options and you don't have it in cash, you don't have to pay taxes on it.
yeah,
Just business 101. If you keep investing into the product that you're building, you don't have to pay taxes on it. So that's
yep.
I just hope people understand that. Like
They don't.
that's international business. Like
Yeah.
so now you don't have to worry about the Americas or Europe or
Mm-hmm.
because you're talking about a multinational corporation at this point. They have products everywhere. So now they're saving money by keeping it all rolled into R&D as well. So that hey, we took a loss. You know we're
Yeah.
gonna write that off in April, right? You know that, right? We're gonna write that off.
Yeah.
So and that's
I mean, that's what you got to do if you want to, Now, I do think this them having their own theme park is going to help them out a lot.
yeah.
Now all we got to do is convince them to make their anime studio and just go and start dropping these damn anime.
Man, people will buy them too for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so Chanel dropped a question. For the new Nintendo console, what would be the ideal on the high end in terms of graphical power?
I'll take this one.
Okay.
I'll take this one. We're gonna go full 16K.
Okay, yeah. That's about right. 16K, right?
We're going to melt your friggin' hands. Matter of fact, you're gonna get a good 5 whopping minutes of gameplay with the highest fidelity you can possibly think of.
So now I'm wondering if that's gonna be. Are we talking about clock speed, or are we talking about other random performance numbers like teraflops, or like what? What are we?
To be honest, I think they're probably just going to stick with something that's doable and that's not only doable, but something that is not going to bankrupt the consumer.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, say Nintendo says, okay, this portable thing is kind of killing us right now. We'll keep Switch as the portable, and our next system is going to be a dedicated console, right?
Yeah.
Even then, I don't see them blowing the bank on something that's going to require high wattage. I don't see Nintendo saying, you know what, we need a 200-watt power supply. I don't see them ever doing that ever again. Like Wii U was the biggest that they've done recently. That was 75 watts, and they rarely got to that in any of their games. So I don't really see them doing anything above 45 watts.
Yeah, I can't see them going. I can't even see them going 4K just because if they do keep the handheld portion, I keep telling people get a new phone. You have a 4K option on your phone. That battery last will go from 100 to 50 in 4 minutes.
Yep. So, it's just one of those things like or Steam Deck, right? It's so much powerful than the Switch.
Play the thing on.
You're playing at 800p in your hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long does that battery last with medium settings?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, granted, if Valve gets off their ass and actually makes games for the Steam Deck and just Steam Deck, you probably get better performance. But that's not what it's there for. So it's going to have games shoehorned there.
That's a big if. That's a very big if.
So games will be shoehorned there, and that's what you're looking at right now. So and you have to assume that for third-party developers too, even if Nintendo makes something similar to that. So you get to a situation where you're like, Nintendo games, they're fine. But when I play Call of Duty, my hands are hurting. Like they're hot. Why is hmm,
Yep.
hmm. So it's gonna depend really. Um, but I wouldn't go over 45 watts no matter what it is. I really want a 45 watt handheld, and I don't think going over 45 watts for a a console is. Look at what Apple has done. They have a Mac Mini that operates anywhere between 12, 30 watts, and is
Mm-hmm.
smoking Intel chips in just about every task imaginable because the way they re-engineered how their SoCs work. Also, they bought an SoC fab like NPA Semi, and they're really really good. So maybe that's part of it. All they do is re-engineer chips. So yeah, but it's possible. So the things that you could do now today in less than 45 watts is amazing. Um, I never thought I would see something running Tomb Raider, loading the game, and having 1080p ultra settings under 30 watts. I never thought I would see that, but here we sit in year of our Lord 2023. Um, but yeah, let me. I think I got. Oh, we got Sandstorm up in here. Sam, what's up? I appreciate you. Appreciate you popping through. Um, but that comment what is legitimate. It says, how destructive you expect the gaming media to treat the new device, saying how they were on a mission to stop Wii U after the success of the Wii. They did the same thing with Switch too.
Yeah,
Never forget.
the first 2 years, yeah, they tried to bury it.
Never forget the same 32 gig argument they gave for Wii U is the same argument they gave for Switch, and they tried to kill it.
Yeah.
They were trying so hard. We don't know how it's going to run games. We don't know what. And with the PS4 and the Xbox, how are those games gonna work? How are they gonna? And then here we go, a PS4 game just running just fine on Switch.
Yep.
Doom Eternal working just fine on Switch. If you take the time, it just kind of happens. I don't know. It just seems like
it's amazing what happens when you stop listening to gaming media and you actually code for the game.
Yep.
Amazing how that works. Although we did have the funny times of Bandai Namco and their hilarious, oh, this game can't run 50 million units later. Hey, y'all want to get Dragon Ball Fighters?
Yeah, I think that only worked then at the time, and that was part of the post that I put about Nintendo not giving a fuck, showing them doing Super Nintendo World, because gaming media had such an iron grip on, how can I say that, basically regurgitating the stances of third parties for the most part. That's basically who they were beholden to.
Yep.
Because third parties pay for ads for all of these sites.
Yeah.
So they would say whatever they wanted. And Nintendo kind of like, they had to interface with them because back then that was, hey, if you're going to do anything, if you're going to do a media tour or anything like that, you got to go through us. You got to contact our press. You got to do this. You got to do that or whatever. And then their press contacts you, and Nintendo had their own press team. And now it's a thing where, fuck y'all. Our press team now is, we'll just put it out.
Iwata killed all that.
Yeah.
Iwata like, okay, y'all going to keep misquoting us? All right.
I think that's the only reason why. That's the only reason why they were able to. That's why they were so successful in killing Wii U, but they weren't for Switch because Nintendo was directly putting the message out, and there's no way for it to be misconstrued now. There's no two E3s where people pretend like they don't know what a Wii U is, or there was no situation where they just say, "Hey, let's put the Switch at E3," and then people just like, "Well, I don't." This little thing, how is this gonna, oh my god, blah blah blah. And that's the first thing you read about Switch is something negative versus Nintendo saying, this is what it is. What do you think? This is our interpretation of what you could do with this. This is gonna change your lifestyle if you game. And it did for millions of people.
And if you want to see how this game plays, we got this little thing called Treehouse Live.
Yep.
We're gonna actually play the game and sit the developer down there and actually interview him while we're playing.
Well, this game runs like trash. Well, but in the treehouse right here, it's looking like it's just fine. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and it's kind of funny because now you can't have those complaints. You can't say, "Well, I played this demo and blah blah blah." No, because Nintendo played the demo right there and walked straight through it, and there were no issues.
Broke down everything you needed to know. So, Iwata was the nicest cutthroat I ever saw. He was the nicest cutthroat.
And so it was sad because he was trying to play nice. Like he was like, you know what, there's this narrative out there that's saying the Wii U can't do these things. So it's our job to prove to our customers, the few customers that we have, that Wii U can do these things. So we'll just speak through the games. And so they would just put games out and they're like, I mean, well, we don't know if it could do an open world game. And then Xenoblade Chronicles X comes out and it's like, yeah. What game world is larger than this? You're gonna have to reach pretty far. There are very few that are bigger than this game world. So 1 gigabyte around.
That's when we had but see that's when IGN got smart. See, they went and published the anonymous EA senior developer.
And then so I rewatched that video too when they were trying to review Xenoblade Chronicles X, and it was like, dude, if you don't like, why are you reviewing it? If you don't even like this system, why are you reviewing this game on this system?
That is why I had a very big problem with IGN, because they would let people like Colin Moriarty, like Greg Miller, review games when they were clearly biased. I'm like, don't have them do it. Just do not have. That's why I don't have any respect for Greg Miller now. I have none for him.
Oh, well, I mean,
because
he got exposed by Sony, so that's hilarious to me.
But I'm just saying, I have no respect for him, because I'm like, because you sit there and ask them now, oh no, we were unbiased. The hell you say? Y'all were biased as hell. Like, look, I get it. If that's not your system of preference, that's fine. I'm not saying you gotta love every system, but you do not need to be reviewing stuff that you already come in with a already predetermined hate for it.
I'm just saying, don't pretend. Yeah. Imagine me reviewing Steam Deck, right? I'm reviewing Steam Deck. I don't like PC gaming.
Yeah.
I don't like Linux.
And you don't like handheld gaming.
I actually like Linux. I don't like handheld gaming. And I'm sitting here talking about I'm talking about this. Oh, this is trash. Oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do that. None of this works. Also, I don't know how computers work. And this is half computer, and you have to know how to go in between each mode to do things in desktop mode and do things in Steam Deck mode, right? And I'm like, well, I click the desktop, and it just takes me to this confusing, and I gotta use a mouse and drag it. It's so horrible. Like,
yeah, but they did that all the time, especially during the Wii U generation, because they were trying to push a narrative that they needed to go third party. Because for some reason they wanted the games, but they didn't want the system.
And I'm thinking, if you make them go third party, right? You couldn't anyway, because if they stop making systems, they're going to stop making games. They're just that's already been said. They're just going to be out.
They're a game that Sony and Microsoft are not game only companies. Nintendo is a game only. Well, probably not now after this whole this situation goes through. But at the time, that's all they did with games. Whether it was Hanafuda cards or video games, that's what they did. Games and toys. Like they weren't a conglomerate. They didn't have, Microsoft proper to prop them up when they have like a $2 billion loss. They didn't have Sony Electronics or Sony Music to prop them up when they had like $1.5 billion loss because they had HDMI cables melting in the back of their PS3s.
Man.
So that's what I'm saying. Like they don't have it. They just had themselves. And out of all the years they've been around, they only had 2 consoles that was quote unquote failures. The Virtual Boy and supposedly the Wii U. But the Wii U can't be a failure because they made a profit off of it. So if you make a profit off of it, it can't be a failure.
13 million in all those games plus Amiibo. I don't know what else to tell you.
And they made profit. They did not incur loss. They made profit.
And they're like, oh well, they lost profit. They lost profit in the beginning when they were R&Ding Wii U.
Yeah.
2011, the Wii U was not sold in 2011.
Yeah. And the funny thing about it was, by the time the Wii U ended, what was 2016, 2017, they had, 9.5 billion in cash in the bank? Not assets.
Instead of less.
Yeah, not assets, cash. That's just the cash. Now the assets, with the assets, it was way more than that. Because right now I think they're sitting at like 15.7 bill or something like that. Because I remember when I made the comment that they could buy Valve, people tell me no they can't. I'm like, Valve is worth
They can
5
buy
bills.
Valve.
They are worth 15.
They can buy Valve on the weekend.
Yeah, they could buy Valve and still have $8 billion left over if they wanted to.
People always talking about, oh, they should just these other companies should just buy Nintendo. Can they afford
They
to?
can't
Nintendo can afford to buy them.
Wait a minute. Remember, somebody named Bill Gates tried. Now he laughed it off.
Yeah.
But that alleged thing had to have happened because he was pissed.
Yep.
Well, that's what he allegedly.
This is an amazing question. I mean, it's not really a question, but that's an amazing question. Why would Nintendo not have an efficient console when all the others are already struggling with all their power? I mean, yeah.
Efficiency works best.
Yeah.
Efficiency works best.
We see all the time these specs come across screens and we don't see games that match up to it. I mean,
another thing too is it's the promise thing. Like, cause they promised like a year and a half out, and then because we've seen it with games. Like,
yep.
I mean, my perfect example was what was it? Gotham Knights.
Yep.
When they first did their first little 8-minute trailer and video, it's going to be 4-player co-op. You know, you'll be able to play with each member of the Bat family. 1 year later, yeah, it's down to 2 players co-op.
Yep.
Wait, what? Halo Infinite is going to have 4 players split screen. We're going to have all this customization at launch. Yeah, about that.
Yep.
Like, you know, you can't promise stuff, man. Like,
yep. He said, funny how some people hate Nintendo below their game. Yeah.
I mean, just go on Twitter and see how many times Xenoblade Chronicles X is damn trending, and people talking about release it on Switch, you cowards. Like, and Monolith already saying it'll cost too much money. We'd rather just make a new game.
Yeah.
Monolith Soft said that like twice.
I mean, they just made the game. They kind of know what they're talking about. So if they said it's going to cost so much money, they're not going to do it.
The game was made for the Wii U because of that gamepad, and I keep telling people they're not going to redo that because, one, you're not going to want to play it.
Yep.
You're not going to want to play it. When you have to, like, sit up and you have to keep swapping between maps, you have to hit the plus every 5 minutes. Every 15 seconds, you got to hit the plus.
Yep.
You're not going to want to do that. You're not.
Yep. Yeah, man, it just is what it is. But no, I just kind of wanted to wrap a tad about the whole thing. I just wanted people to know, first and foremost, Nintendo loves security more than anything else.
Well,
them developing Horizon OS the way that they did was a result of them like, look, that Twilight hack sucks. So what we're gonna do is make sure that never happens again. Never. So that is why they came up with the kernel in the way that they did. So there is a potential that they could do kind of like a big kernel. It'll be more like mock kernel more than anything else. It'll be a hybrid, right? So it'll be a big Linux OS, but with all the features of the microkernel. So there's backwards compatibility with Horizon OS. There's every potential that they could go there as well. You'll just have to, they would just have to decide, or they've already decided in all for all intents and purposes now, which way to go forward and why more than anything else. I would think for security purposes, they don't really change anything. They would just change maybe some of the strings as far as signing software and stuff like that, so they don't have to worry about stuff getting hacked. If anything else, if they're going to change anything, to be honest with you, I don't think it would be on the console end. I think it would actually be on the CDN side and eShop, because I'll just be honest with you, like, they got roasted pretty quick. Like, people were able to just mimic a Switch console and a Wii U console pretty quick and just start straight downloading stuff. Mm-hmm. So if they were to emulate and just download games straight from the eShop, that's probably more detrimental than having a console being hacked and going from there, because that's just users doing stuff with the console that they bought. more so than now you got stuff other than a console out here stealing games from you. To be honest with you, I think that's where they need to go next. In terms of security and how to validate these tickets and keep things other than Nintendo consoles pulling software. So I'm pretty sure they can find ways to do that, and they probably got some command center somewhere looking to see which CDN partners have the most downloads and why. But if I was thinking, if I was a Nintendo ninja, that's what I would go first, more so than worrying about the security of the. You kind of already have the blueprint to make it really hard for people to want to hack the system and do whatever they want with it, kind of situation to pirate games. So at this point right now, it kind of not worth your while to do that. It's probably better if you're going to do it, just do it on a different device. That's what most people are doing anyway. They're just emulating stuff on like Steam Deck and PC and whatnot instead of trying to do it on a Switch. So it's kind of, I guess, emulation in that way has kind of saved or stopped some of the bad stuff happening on Switch consoles. But I'm pretty sure they still get bricked on a daily basis too. You're saying these fake gamers, fake journalists know zero about Nintendo's business. It's sad. It's sad a lot of the times how I think they know. They just pretend to be stupid. They'll go and say, "Oh, Nintendo has this operational whatever, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Did you read the rest of the statement at all? Like they're green, they're good, and they would just pretend like it's the worst thing ever." Yeah. Darboy says, "Do you think Nintendo will buy a Japanese studio before Sony does? Because the rumors are going around that Sony is going to try to buy Square Enix or Capcom."
Well, right now I think Square is in the same predicament Activision is. Although I would say Square's situation is they're hemorrhaging money. Activision's situation is they're trying to get rid of Bobby Kotick. To be fair, in that whole board, but I think. I don't. If they were going to, they probably would have bought Platinum.
Yeah, that's
what they were going to.
That's what RJ said.
I don't think they're gonna buy anybody. I just don't think they do that. They just want to work with them. I mean,
yeah, that's essentially what's happening. So, and that would be the biggest. That would be the biggest W, clearly. But Platinum wants to be independent, so they won't take Nintendo's money.
Well, Nintendo respects them too, so they're not going to do that. So I don't see Nintendo doing that. I don't see why Nintendo would have to.
If they haven't bought Pokemon Company, and
Pokemon Company could be going anywhere, but they don't want to. They just,
I think HAL Labs is still independent too. If I'm not mistaken.
HAL is still independent,
which is crazy because like. Your president left and became president of Nintendo, and they still didn't buy.
They still didn't buy him. But I think it's probably one of those situations, like we said, like they probably didn't want to be bought, and Nintendo's like, okay, we won't buy you.
Yep.
As long as we still work with you, long as we still work with you, we don't care. We won't buy you as long as we still work with you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it says Nintendo buying a publisher causes journalists to have a meltdown. I believe it too. Especially if it was a big studio, like if Nintendo bought Capcom,
that would be funny. That would be hilarious.
If they bought Capcom, that would be insane.
Because the first game they probably gonna make is Power Stone.
Yep.
Like they ain't gonna go Street Fighter. They're gonna go Power Stone. They're gonna go something completely left field.
Breath of Fire 5, just anything
Power Stone,
random.
Breath of Fire, and probably Beautiful Joe. More than like they'll probably give Beautiful Joe and give it back to Platinum.
Yep.
Hey, y'all want to work on it? Y'all never did that third movie.
It says, he said, does HAL Labs have partial rights to Kirby?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
And they're the official developers for it too. I don't think anybody else has made a Kirby game, if I'm not mistaken.
Because that's one of the reasons why that Kirby Right Back at You anime got made, because HAL actually owns.
Yep.
That
was their whole little deal. So I'm just gonna run down a little bit of a list for people to know, just little facts that I have here for the backwards compatibility thing. These are things you need to know. Currently, Nintendo Switch has custom drivers, right? It's not just regular Linux OS. generic drivers or whatever. Everything is custom. Nintendo Switch has a custom API that's NVN. NVN2 is confirmed. It is an API that obviously Nintendo is still working with NVIDIA on. Nintendo Switch has a custom OS. That's Horizon OS. That's what you see when you turn your Switch on. And underneath all of that is a firmware layer that is the microkernel version of that OS that operates everything that you don't see. And it also directly interfaces with the memory. Games don't do it. They get a translated version of it that plays in virtual space, so nothing gets corrupted. Nintendo built that microkernel in-house. They built that. Just so you know. I think that's the biggest thing, too. Nintendo built that microkernel. It is completely custom. There's nothing that looks like that anywhere. So, and if they built a custom microkernel that talks directly to the hardware, basically no other Tegra device operates the way that one does. They obviously know how to make it better. They obviously know how to make it forward proof. So I think people need to know those things going forward based on the current meltdown that gaming media is having since MVG made a video. And I guess the other thing is just to know the difference between what is user space. I used to call it user land all the time back in my old programming days when you're dealing with Nix platforms. User land is going to be whatever you're able to touch, essentially. So as a user, can you go in and, hey, I can run this application? User land in a regular monolithic situation. So if it was just Linux or just Windows, what you would touch would be all the applications you could open. That's it. Just application. Everything else is being run by the kernel, by the big kernel. So memory, all that other kind of stuff is all being handled, and drivers are all being handled by the big OS. And the microkernel is bits and pieces here and there. I guess I can find the image so I can show it to you real quick before we close this out. It's probably the best way to show you. I didn't want to see if I could pull it. It's probably the best way to. Let's see here. It's probably the best way to see if I can get an image for you guys real quick, just so you can see, because it was kind of trying to show you my phone is probably the worst way. And I don't like using Wikipedia, but I don't have so much choice here. So I'll pull this up so you guys can see. All right. So if you look here, I have this guy. Let's see what I got. All right. So this big thing here. So people can understand, right? So what Nintendo has is what's on the right there. And so what's a little different from what they have is the file server and all that is still under here too, because you don't really have access to any of the files underneath. A developer might, depending on what version of the SDK they have, right? And the device driver, the Unix server doesn't exist. That's hidden as well. The application is there for both the developer and you, because you're going to call this. And what I meant for this is the big kernel. This is the big monolithic kernel. So when you run regular Linux, this is your hardware, and this is everything stacked on top of it. And the only thing you touch is the application. Even when you go and you look at stuff and you're running applications and look at your memory and all that, that's still an application that's just looking down at all the rest of this stuff. You don't really get control of any of this. You're just viewing, kind of. For you to modify any of this, you would need some type of privilege permissions to be able to do this. As a regular user, you can't see it. Now, on this side, for the microkernel side, no matter what permissions you have, you're not getting in here. This is all privilege level stuff that happens at boot with regards to Nintendo Switch's firmware. So the only thing you'll be able to see is the applications that you want to pick from that. Now, if you're a developer and you're in the SDK, you may be able to see some parts of the file server, but not all of it, because it's being translated for you underneath under here with this IPC virtual memory and scheduling. because what you're getting is not real memory. You're getting a virtual page that's being requested for you. So when you say, "Hey, I need so much RAM," and it's like, "We got 4 gigs of RAM, but you're only getting 3." Well, I need 3 CPU cores. We got 4, and we're only giving you the 3 you asked for. You won't ever get 4. Um, and the game tries to run, "Hey, these are the drivers that are embedded that I'm playing with," and those drivers and those shaders are going to be scheduled, and they're going to load into RAM, and that RAM isn't even going to be real. It's just going to be an address space that's being presented to you as the game is initialized. That's essentially what's happening there, and that's the big difference. So Nintendo's not going to stray from what's on the right here because it's more secure. Nobody can get in here and do anything to change any of the scheduling or any of the IPC. So you want to have control over IPC because you want to have at least one core reserved for the operating system to handle this task and something for low level stuff so no cache is interrupted or anything like that. So you want to keep that there. And I think this is the part that he left out because just assuming that, hey, if you run this little device driver over here and it's always in user space, and if you have a new game that's asking for it in a new OS, you're assuming that the new OS is going to be like this big kernel over here, and then it wouldn't be compatible. There's nothing saying Nintendo won't continue doing this or doing a hybrid of the two. So, and Nintendo's not stupid. They have people that, like I said, they hard code CPUs all the time. They know exactly what they're doing here. And I'll say this again, they wrote the entire microkernel for Nintendo Switch as we speak right now. Horizon OS is their thing they authored. So saying they are not able to figure out this solution, chances are they already know what the solution was when they finished making Switch. So that's kind of what I wanted to let everybody know. I don't know if there's any more last minute questions here. If anybody else wanted to kind of chime in, but that's basically what I was trying to get to people so y'all can see. It's probably a little bit better if you can see, but I would have had to stage so many slides, and that's not something I'm trying to do. Like, enough of that at work. I don't need to do it. Don't need to do it here. So, but I appreciate y'all coming through. Do I have any more questions here? I don't know if I do. I think I had one here from Dark Void. Talking about the anime situation where streaming service will get the rights. Their current deal is with Universal, right? When you think they would double dip with them?
Because Universal partnered up with Paramount.
Yep. So that sounds like a Paramount.
It'll probably be either Paramount or Netflix.
Yeah.
I can see Disney Plus making a play for it just so they can throw it on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd probably be if they're partnered with Universal, it's probably gonna be Paramount Plus if and when it goes forward. I don't know. I did read something interesting, but I don't know if it's true. But supposedly after they see how Mario is done, Star Fox is supposed to be next.
Yep.
And that's Illumination.
Star Fox would be good.
Illumination is going to be doing Star Fox. Now, Zelda is actually, from what I understand, is actually being shopped around because everybody knows about the Netflix one that they did the little animatic trailer for. It'll probably be a different company doing it, but I don't know how that's going to work. But yeah. Oh, Universal Peacock? Okay, yeah. Well, it was one of them. Yeah, can't keep up with all of these movies now.
Got too many of them. Yeah, got too many of them.
But yeah, they'll probably do something with Peacock. I would not, but don't be surprised if like Netflix gets some or Crunchyroll gets some. Don't be surprised, because yeah, Star Fox is the rumored one. If Mario blows up, it's not Donkey Kong. It's actually Star Fox. That's the rumored one. Well, according to what I read on comicbook.com. That's the supposed the rumor is if Mario blows up at the box office, which I'm probably thinking it is going to, Star Fox is going to be the next movie, and that's going to be Illumination. Well, the funny thing about the whole Link voice thing is if you play the game, you know he can talk.
Yeah.
So people gonna get mad anyway. It's kind of like the same thing that happened when they gave Cloud a voice. When they gave Cloud a voice,
because
people
you
was
imagine a voice
tripping.
in your head and it
Yeah,
does.
and it don't match up. So, well, the only reason the only reason why I say Crunchyroll is because they still have those outlier animes that still go on there, even though Sony be tripping. So, yeah, I don't know because those deals are separate. Those deals are just separate because there's a couple of them that I was like, why is this on there? Because they got a couple of Street Fighter ones on there, and I'm like, why is this on there when that was with a whole different company?
Okay.
So and the Fatal Fury stuff too, and because that I saw that's on there. The Tales of Symphonia they went back and put on there. So I'm guessing all the stuff that came over from Funimation from when they bought Funimation is seeping in. But I would not be surprised. Like, yeah, first I was doubting Crunchyroll as well, but I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if they work something out because anime is anime. I would not be surprised if they work something out.
Okay. All right, sir. That's pretty much all I got. You have anything to add, Jay?
Uh,
Okay. All right.
the only
Well,
thing tomorrow we got 3 presentations, so be over on the Winging It podcast at 5. The first one is the presentation for the Mario movie. I'm thinking that's just gonna be a trailer. Right after that, at 5:30 is Capcom's presentation. Right after that, at 6 is Level 5's.
okay.
So yeah, 3 back to back.
Yeah, busy day on the Wing It podcast. So you guys check that out. I don't know which one I'll be able to catch. I'll try to jump in on all three of them if I can. But yeah, y'all make sure y'all if you haven't subscribe to the Wing It podcast channel. Also subscribe to everybody else that's on the podcast. That's Jack. It's gonna be Sandstorm. Vicky, if you haven't subscribed to Vicky.
Yeah.
And we'll try to get this rolling. Rob will rule us to review as well. Like this, that's a good guy. Just make sure you subscribe to him as well. But other than that, that's all I got right now. I will be doing a video of this. I don't know when it will be uploaded, but for more details, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about with probably more slides. But I'll try to go into more detail so it's a little bit more understandable for people to get, so you really understand how Nintendo got this locked down. But other than that, that's all I have. And only thing I have to say with you guys is we're gonna step in the game. We out.
See ya.